Greetings and welcome, our esteemed judges, our dear Ignited Voices, members and coaches, respectful audience, good afternoon, and welcome to the third day of our Ignited Voices Leadership Program proposal session. My name is Ghada Rifa'i, and I'll be moderating today's session. For the past few months, Ignited Voices leadership members had been engaging with world-renowned speakers and coaches to hone their leadership, public speaking, and critical thinking skills. And after 12 weeks, today, we will hear from some of our participants who will present their solution for some issues in the following areas: entrepreneurship, innovation, inclusion, climate change, sustainability, and community engagement. But first, please join me in welcoming our esteemed judges for today. Mr. Maroon Kairouz, the World Economic Forum Head of Middle East and North Africa, and the Deputy Head of Europe and Eurasia. Welcome, Mr. Maroon. Ms. Sarah Al-Arrak, a previous research consultant at University of Chicago, G20 and current postgraduate student at King's College in London. Ms. Rahaf Al-Sanusi, Program Director, Policy Design in King Khalid Foundation and C20 Sherpa for 2020. Thank you for sparing the time to be with us this afternoon, and we're looking forward to your engagement. Dear presenters, please be aware of the time, and I wish you all good luck. Without further ado, let me introduce our first presenter, Abdullah Balashraf, who will be followed by Athir Al-Kibsi. Abdullah, the floor is yours.
Okay, so hi. Good evening, everyone, esteemed judges, fellow members, and the audience. My name is Abdullah Balsharaf, and today I will be talking about our biggest strength, the youth. I want to begin with embarking you in a journey of mine and a personal story that has stuck with me till this year. 3 years ago, I was 16, full of life, ambitious. I wanted to dig deeper into this enormous world yet unknown. So me and some fellow colleagues decided on doing some volunteering work to give back to our communities and to enhance our social skills. Luckily, we found a community service institute that offered us the opportunity to tutor young kids of the less fortunate in the rural areas of my city, Jeddah. The program was basically tutoring kids for 17 weeks in various subjects such as math, English, and Arabic, and also enhancing their social skills such as critical thinking and etc. After spending significant time with these kids, I saw something unique within each one of them, a spark that wants to be lit. And oh man, what an inspirational spark it was. When reflecting upon it, I thought that these less unfortunate bright kids have almost little to no access to resources to further help them strive and become the young leaders and pioneers in their community, which was my first encounter with the matter of youth empowerment. Youth empowerment is not only a movement, it is the future of our country. With the youth, supporting the youth will help us to achieve our Vision 2030, Sustainable Development Goals, many other agendas which will contribute to our growth and success as a country. We can see in the top left corner the map of the world done by the Commonwealth Secretariat, which shows the Youth Development Index. Although Saudi Arabia, being between many countries who are from low to medium Youth Development Index, it is ranked very highly and is the best 15th country in the world as recorded by the Commonwealth Secretariat. At the bottom, we could see a graph published by the MISC Global Youth Index, which further shows the percentage of the youth who are likely to start their own business someday with the GDP per capita. We see that Saudi Arabia ranks at the 70th percentage of the youth. While some of us might say that 70%, comparing with other countries such as Nigeria, Pakistan, South Africa, is quite low. But when actually thinking about it, the youth make up 70% of Saudi's population. So if 70% of the youth is willing to start their own business someday, having ambitions and aspirations, then that makes up 30% of our whole population, which itself is an indication of how significant and how important our youth is. We could see a report done by the General Authority of Statistics shows that even in a world where many countries are worried about the crisis of aging population, Saudi Arabia has 67% of its population in the age group of 34 or under. We can also see that within the past 14 years, the population has grown by approximately 12 million citizens. And as we all know, with any growth and with any change comes challenges that we as a youth might face in our daily lives. The challenges we face today are of those of economic and social matters. With the constant shift of our economy, the youth become more scared with no proper guidance, which leads to high youth unemployment rates and many other consequences in the long term. We see that many of the less fortunate percentage of the youth have limited resources, which is evident in the youth's limited professional experience, which is an apparent weakness when the youth engage with anyone in their community. Resilience and creativity are key characteristics in a young leader. Although the satisfaction of the youth wanting to be in decision-making process is yet not fulfilled, and the trust by the community towards the youth is still not at what we want it to be. Possible solutions to limiting these challenges that we face. First of all, advocating for the youth in order to bridge the gap between the youth and the community through social media and through many other initiatives. Along with that, there could be established an agency dedicated to searching for those hidden gems in our community, guiding them from a very young age, supporting them, and further enhancing and preparing them to become the future leaders of our community. Another viable framework would be improving our school curriculums, including social skills, entrepreneurship, and many other studies which would benefit our youth in the future. As a community, we should present unconditional support to the youth, whether it be from the families, from the workplace, and as mentioned earlier, from the community. I want to end my presentation with including a quote from the face of the youth advocacy in our country, our Crown Prince, His Highness Mohammed bin Salman. One of our most significant assets is our lively and vibrant youth. Thank you all for listening, and thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Abdullah, for your presentation. And now the floor is for our judges. Ms. Sarah, would you like to go first?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead. Abdullah, thank you so much for your presentation. I just have a question. You clarified it at the beginning, but I would like to go more into details. Why did you specifically choose this topic? And how do you see, when you mentioned at the end examples of workplace or community support, the community workplace or community support, can you please give us examples of how can we support youth through workplace?
Of course, beginning with your first question, when I saw those young kids, I saw that it was very basic. They had no ambitions, but they did have the resilience, the want, the need. But there was no clear plan or clear path for them to follow, which was due to the limited guidance and not being exposed to many other resources. Secondly, with the support that comes from the community, we see that in many places, such as the workplace and the community, as you have mentioned, we see that many people are hesitant to support or to give the youth some freedom when dealing with work, when dealing with people, when doing anything, with fears of failure or fears of not, you can say, giving 100% effort and bringing the best result out of them. As for many years, there has always been this constant mistrust or this constant, you can say, misconception that the youth are somewhat reckless. But as we know, this year and at this time, all of our youth are more educated, more wanting, more ambitious, and more resilient. And giving this trust to this youth through this way, I think, is the best viable option. I hope this answered your question.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sarah. Mr. Maroon, would you like to go?
Yeah, my question to you, Abdullah, is basically around technology. And you know, a big advantage that Saudi Arabia has, and a big advantage that comes with a youthful population, is this ability not to be afraid of the future, to leverage technology, to really harness it to increase your country's competitiveness. So how do you look at that in the context of empowering the youth? What is the role of young people in harnessing the opportunities, but also mitigating the risks that are associated with technology? I'm curious to know your views.
Okay, thank you. That is an excellent question. Of course, with technology comes dangers, comes exposure, comes other stuff. One of the stuff that people might see is materialism, for example, that many people and many of the youth is, you can say, deceived by the idea of materialism. Having the most, having the best is what someone aspires for, no matter what they can do. But in reality, we could see that there are many successful people who their intent was not always money, was not always materialism. It was to make a change, it was to make an impact. To mitigate the risks of the youth, I believe it's through raising awareness, not only by programs, we could say raising awareness in such households, which is a very huge responsibility for any father or for any brother or for anyone who has youth in their house to limit the exposure to these, you could say, falsifying information, deceiving the youth. And finally, we could say that the youth acknowledging that technology and the risks of it is not as true as it seems, itself just limits the, you could say, the risks of technology being deceiving. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abdullah and Mr. Maroon. And we would go right now to Ms. Rahaf.
Thank you, Ghada, and thank you, Abdullah, for your wonderful presentation. I was really struck by the story that you started with and your engagement with the community in Jeddah. And I would like to ask you to elaborate a bit on your engagement and with the community, and share with us perhaps one thing that struck you about the neighborhood that you worked in, and why.
Okay. Thank you. So just to give a little bit of context, so we were in, as I said, the rural areas in Jeddah, but we would meet in a place called Jeddah Tarikhiyya, or you could say the old Jeddah, where it's more traditional, where our base was there, and then all different kids from all around the neighborhood and even nearby neighborhoods would come in to benefit from this. An encounter that really struck me was I was with these kids, and then I saw like they were picking on one kid, and or they were just joking with them, and then they talk to it, they say, oh, he's coming from this neighborhood which is really far away. So I went and talked with the kid. I went to talk with this young student, and he was like, yeah, I took 3 buses to come here, and now I have to either walk back or I have to take the buses back if it is viable. It really struck me as even in a very developed countries, in a very developed country, there are those little percentages of people who still seek for education, who still seek for improvement in the hardest of ways. And there has not been, like, we did not have any financial support, so we could not provide any, you could say, direct smart transportation, but it just opened my eyes on how much value that these kids and these young students have towards education, towards just enhancing their own personal skills, whatever the result might be, whether it be helping their community, helping their parents. But it's always, you can say, very inspiring and very somewhat sad to see the struggles that these kids go through just to receive somewhat little and extra education even after school. I hope that answered your question, and thank you for such a wonderful question.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Abdullah, and thank you, judges. Please, dear participants, be aware of the time when you present. And now we will have Athir, and after Athir, we will have Saud. Athir, the floor is yours.
Being young, passionate individuals, we constantly try to develop ourselves, enroll into programs that develop youth and equip us for the future. Yet, through all of the great efforts that we witness and that we involve ourselves into, it is apparent that there are still gaps that need to be addressed. My name is Athir Al-Kibsi, and it has been my life's mission to ensure that youth through all ages and social classes are heard, understood, and well represented. Approximately 30% of youth in Saudi are still unemployed, and the ones who actually have jobs struggle to adapt into their workplaces or even progress in a manner that achieves their aspirations. Also, 50% of today's population is made up of young people, and most of those young people are in developing countries. This means that this makes them the largest cohort of young people that ever existed. And this also means that whatever investments are made into youth will have an important impact on a large share of the population. Now we know that there are great investments that are made into youth, but questions are raised around their effectiveness. And if they are, to what extent? The list of questions go on, such as, what are the trade-offs of these programs, policies, initiatives that are set in place for the youth? What is their cost-benefit ratio? Are we reaping the benefits expected? Are we addressing the root cause of the issues faced by youth? Or are we only brushing the surface? And how can we integrate and unify the existing efforts? One step that we could make that could answer some of these questions is maybe establishing the Saudi Youth Think Tank. The Saudi Youth Think Tank could be an independent, regional, and specialized institute that provides tailored, practical solutions to policymakers and other entities. Now, for those of you who understand what is a think tank, please pause for a second and allow me to make some room to explain what a think tank is. A think tank falls at the intersection between research, practicality, and also advisory to their stakeholders. Now, the goal of the Saudi Youth Think Tank is to conduct research and provide data and insight for policymakers and other entities. But the goal of it is to make decisions and actions that is evidence-based, and that those actions are informed in a way to ensure that youth are involved through every step, and those solutions reflect the realities of the younger generations. This think tank could conduct activities including studies, surveys, workshops, interviews, to actually go into the lives of those young people through every social class in all ages to understand the pressing issues for them and then inform the decision makers. It could also develop impact analysis on implemented initiatives and programs to enhance them or maybe even reverse them if needed. And most importantly, it will allow the participation of those young people in the research in developing the solutions and initiatives that will shape their future. But most importantly, it will be with unbiased guidance. Now, what's unique about this think tank that it will have a multidimensional approach, and it could focus on including, but not limited to, education, both traditional schooling and unconventional education, labor market issues, health, both physical and mental health, and also let's not forget trends and technological breakthroughs to answer some of the uncertainties that we all face in everyday life. This multidimensional approach will ensure that everything that is developed by this Saudi Youth Think Tank will be developed in a way that is integrated and exhaustive. So instead of focusing on only one aspect, we could look at the bigger picture and say, what is really the pain point for those young people? Now, if there is one thing that I could leave you with, it would be my long belief that we all hold an ethical obligation to understand those young people and develop ways to empower them and engage them in the decision-making and shaping their future, crafting a different future, a better future, one that they're willing to participate in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Athir, for your presentation. And now we'd like to go to our judges. Who would like to start?
If I may.
Yes, please, you may.
Thank you so much, Athir. I just have one quick question. Who would you recommend to support or sponsor the Youth Think Tank if it would ever be implemented? Thank you.
If you mean in terms of funding?
Yes.
So the goal of the think tank that it would be non-for-profit to ensure that whatever product that comes out of it is unbiased and with integrity. But the sponsorship should, I believe, begin and be supported first by donations and by the government. And then moving forward, the funding will be based on the products. So it's non-for-profit, but it's at cost since they should develop products and solutions for their stakeholders.
Clear, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sarah. I've seen like Ms. Rahaf, she unmuted herself earlier, so would you please go?
Thank you so much, Athir, for raising this very important issue, and that is a gap in research when it comes to the youth population in Saudi. I was wondering if you've looked at the body of research that is available in Saudi on youth, or if you looked at other research institutes in the country that is specializing in youth research, and how do you envision coordination with the body that you're recommending and the existing research institutes in the country?
Thank you. So it depends on the topic. So the goal of the Saudi Youth Think Tank is that the field of focus is youth, but again, within them, there will be different units. So if we're talking about education, I believe one important stakeholder is MISC. If we're talking about technology and science, we could focus on universities, research universities such as KAUST. So I do believe that at the beginning, most of the research will be a collaboration between existing research bodies. And the hard part here, I mean, I believe in Saudi, we don't have a problem when it comes to research, but we do have a gap when it comes to bridging between research and then policymakers. And I believe that's the main point that we're trying to address here, where we create a room for collaboration between existing bodies that already do research. And then the think tank would come in and then advocate for the solutions and the products to policymakers and other stakeholders and make those research accessible and practical and implementable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Athir and Ms. Rahaf. Mr. Maroon, would you like to go?
Sure, thanks a lot, Athir, for a very engaging delivery. If I looked correctly at your slide on key issues, one of the things, all very important, education, employment, one of the things that I saw was not there which is crucial for your generation, for the next generation, is sustainability, climate change, the environment. It used to be a tricky subject to handle in the Middle East, but we've seen big initiatives earlier this year by His Royal Highness on the environment, the Middle East Green Initiative, Saudi Green Initiative, etc. How do you envisage that this think tank would engage with this important issue? That is my question to you.
Thank you for this question. I love it. So the thing about sustainability and climate change, at least right now at this phase, it's at a country level. So the governments are more involved when it comes to initiatives and developing goals to meet the Paris Agreement goal. So it's not at a youth level. Yes, at some point, youth need to be involved into these topics, and this could be part of the solutions that are developed by the think tank on how to involve youth and educate them and get them thinking early on the pressing issues facing the world. But right now, sustainability and climate change is at a government level. It's not even at a company level, at least not here in Saudi Arabia, let alone on a household or individual level. So it is a topic that needs to be addressed at some point, but I don't believe right now it is a pain point or an issue that will face youth.
Thank you so much, Athir, and thank you so much, our judges. For now, we will move to our next presenter. We have Saud, and after Saud, we have Ahmed. Saud, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your kind presence and for also lending me your ears. So my name is Saud Malihi. I'm a physician by background, a health economist and a public health specialist by training, and a humanitarian by purpose. And today I want to talk to you about resilience in action. My past reflections amid the crisis, one of the largest historical pandemics, and also to understand the current realities to shape a better future. What you see here are not only mere red dots, it's lost lives, shattered homes, and abandoned families in which many has been affected, hundreds of millions, collapsed economies, conflicts arise during the past year. And to understand this journey, we can actually see the numbers, how many deaths have happened, and the cases that actually were expanded around the globe. And the consequences of this pandemic were not only health consequences, it touches upon every core value of our community, the economy, employment, the many lost years within education. And this, by this, actually, I was privileged to understand what happened during the Middle East, as we were in a very safe place and lucky to see that our families were safe in a country that had resilience in its core response. Many across the Middle East were shattered. Even in the US, where I was studying at Johns Hopkins University, we have seen COVID as a catalyst to inequalities, to economic disruptions. Yet I was content to know that my family was safe during this confusion. And numbers speak about this, as Saudi Arabia had one of the lowest case fatalities amid the confusion in August 2020. This resilience wasn't only internal within Saudi Arabia, but it also touched upon the lives of many as we were leading the G20 into bridging the gaps when it comes to the response to the COVID pandemic. We have seen debt reliefs, we have seen initiatives to actually catalyze the interventions toward the pandemic and also bridge the vulnerable populations and assist them in the times of their significant need. How can we actually be dreamers? How can we turn the Middle East into New Europe, as His Royal Highness said? I believe my answer and the concept that I dream of and I want to practice and value is public health entrepreneurship. Our resilience needs that intervention gravely, as it contains an ecosystem that will actually empower the region. This ecosystem should consist of accelerator programs in which we see startups that tackle issues that we discussed in this live talk, such as climate threats, as we live in Saudi Arabia. And apparently people in Riyadh sense the high temperatures that are record since 1850. Mentorship, training the next generations, and also corporate engagement in which we really built a resilient integrated system. The projected actually market for healthcare services and deliveries is projected to grow, especially within this recent crisis. And this ecosystem actually should comprise of integral services which encounter environmental threats by reducing renewable products, by also integrating nutrition and optimizing our services through product development and consulting within our public health entities that exist now. And the most resilient component is well-being, how we invest in the human capital and mental health resilience. The steps actually to reach such ambitious vision and empower the upcoming future generation is to build and imagine the roadmap. And this roadmap contains valuable competencies, understanding and training people within legal and regulatory structures, business fundamentals and communication, to draw the public health frameworks and understand the basic fundamentals of finance and market research. These core requirements will actually shape our upcoming public health entrepreneurs and also change the narrative within the Middle East and hopefully the whole world, as we have seen in the past year. I want to leave you with a simple quote, as I believe humanity has endured many crises, even deadlier than the current pandemic, such as the plague. Dr. Juthani actually said, humanity's memory is short, and what's not ever present fades quickly. It's important to remember and recognize our history. This is a period we must remember in order to ensure resilient and prosperous future for our generations to come. Thank you so much for your time, and so excited to hear your inputs and valuable questions.
Thank you, Saud. Thank you, Saud, for your presentation. And now to our judges, who would like to start first? Our judges. Let's go with Mr. Maroon this time, because all the time we go with the ladies. So how about you start first, Mr. Maroon?
Thank you, Saud, for the very nice presentation. My question to you is around what you mentioned on the region and what His Royal Highness has said about making it to the new Europe. Of course, integration and health solutions are important, but if we take a realistic view, there are still very basic conflicts at the political level, at the geopolitical level, that prevent, or that I wouldn't say prevent, but that are an obstacle to collaboration on those issues. So how do you see, at least within countries in the region, overcoming these obstacles to operate the kind of collaboration that you described in your presentation? And what are some of the frameworks that you foresee for this?
Thank you, Mr. Maroon, for your valuable insight. Actually, we have seen that even the most prepared systems, when they have a political uncertainty, they actually suffer. mainly the US at the beginning of their journey within tackling the pandemic. And to put it in shape, I believe that we have seen solidarity within the pandemic. We have seen how countries actually work together, even rivals. They actually shared information about the pandemic, they collaborated, and they understood the grave consequences of such huge threat. And I believe that, as we said, empowering the youth, putting ideas that this kind of threat is far away from the political uncertainty that we possess, and investing in that notion, investing in practical solutions that are far away from any political bias. I believe that is key in order to tackle such major issue. I hope this answered your valuable question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maroon. Ms. Sarah, would you like to go?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Saud, for your presentation. So my question is if you can give us an example of a quick and effective solution that we can implement within the next upcoming years to tackle this issue within the Middle East and specifically in Saudi, if there's something that, an easy fix.
So one of the inspiring examples that I foresee is the Acumen Fund. So the Acumen Fund is a social investment fund in which it empowers a fellowship, preparing the future leaders. And this fund operates in East Africa, rural areas in Bangladesh and India. And within their health sector, they actually built resilience within investing in small startups that have high impact within the numbers of lives being saved, diseases being treated, and awareness being spread. So I believe these two components, having an accelerator and investing in the future population through fellowships, training programs for entrepreneurship, mainly in public health, would be key in understanding the takeaways of the Acumen Fund experience and also creating our own meaningful intervention.
Thank you.
Ms. Rahaf, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, thank you, Saud, very much for your presentation. It's always refreshing to hear Saudi youth thinking about social entrepreneurship. At the King Khalid Foundation, we invest in social entrepreneurs in the country. And so it's you can imagine how happy I am to hear about your proposal. I would like to learn more about what exactly are you aiming with this social enterprise and what are you trying to achieve? And how do you think, who's going to support you to launch this social enterprise?
Thank you, Ms. Raf, for your kind question. And I believe that the support for this group, as we all are ambitious in tackling and visualizing a better future. And regarding your point, I believe that this social enterprise should focus on understanding the public health threats that we have. So the pandemic is just like the tip of the iceberg. We have climate change, we have conflicts, as Mr. Maroon earlier said, we have major issues in the basic fundamentals. So understanding these issues, framing human-centered health interventions, I believe is key in order to overcome and invest in such solutions. And that's the main core and mission of this enterprise.
And is it going to be to function locally or globally?
To be honest, I hope it functions both locally, because I believe that we aspire to have a better and resilient system. We succeed in the pandemic and earlier within MERS-CoV as well in the past decade, but we need to transform such region to become, as His Royal Highness said, the new Europe, a place to enjoy and prosper.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Saud, for your informative presentation. And our next presenter would be Ahmed. And after Ahmed, we have Abdulaziz. Ahmed, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Ahmed Gota. I'm a planning engineer, and I work at UNESCO for 1 year as an intern with the gender team at Italy. I'll start my presentation with a question, more of a challenge. Can you clap using one hand Can anyone clap using one hand? And obviously the answer is no. And so is nations. Nations can clap using one hand. Allow me to introduce you today to a conceptual idea of a nonprofit organization that its main objective to spread awareness on gender equality and to empower women as well. But before we get to that, we need to understand where are we today in terms of gender equality in Saudi Arabia. So according to the General Authority of Statistic, this is where we are today, where 1 is a complete equality and 0 is a complete non-equality. And I would kindly ask you to memorize this graph as we are going to get to it later on. So this is alpha. Alpha stands for equal life for all. And alpha is taking the one hand can clap as their main theme. We need to identify 2 main key elements here, which is the purpose and the need. What is the purpose of alpha and why do we need it? So female represent half of the population of Saudi Arabia, and they have the greater percentage in terms of advanced university graduate. And it seems that female have more interest in going for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics majors in university. The vision of 2030 are focusing on empowering women because they are the second hand that we need in order to build our country and to develop it, because one hand can clap. Government and community, even though that female represent half of the population, and even though they have a greater percentage when it comes to the number of graduate, but yet only 32% of the employee in the private sector are female. And there is a big variation between the percentage of unemployment rate between male and female, and they are only less than the quarter participate economically. So those numbers are really good reflection to the first graph we've seen, where education were near 1, while the economical and organizational aspect were behind. I would like to note that since the announcement of the vision, there is a reduction in those numbers and there is improvement, but the issue is still there. And I guess that's due to several reasons. One of them, or one of the most important, is due to the lack of awareness and due to the absence of an active non-government NGO. So basically what's happening here is that the government have launched several actions and changes in terms of gender equality, but the community and the private sector are still in the process of coping with those changes. And that's why we need Alpha. The improvement is going to happen, but Alpha will be smoothing the way toward division. Because after all, one hand can clap. I find that it is the NGO responsibility to spread awareness, while it is the government's responsibility to make actions. So ideally, an NGO would be working on spreading awareness, capacity building, researches, and setting a common goal with the government and working on achieving it. A very good example of an active Saudi NGO is MISC Foundation. MISC Foundation, youth empowerment is part of the vision, and MISC Foundation took it to another level where youth are being empowered now and their voices are being heard. They are engaging on the international platform. To summarize what I'm saying, I came up with a very simple equation. So we have the Vision 2030 plus MISC Foundation, and that equals youth empowerment. So let's take another one. We have the Vision 2030 plus Alpha. What would be the answer? What would be different if we had Alpha today? If you would ask my opinion, it would be something similar to this. Alpha would be working on closing the gender gap. The Saudi vision is a quite impressive vision. It's a vision that would change all life aspects, and it's a vision that will promote and enhance the individual's life quality. But we need also to be realistic about it. We need to know how to wisely, or we need to fully digest the idea that we need to know how wisely we are going to use all the available resources that we have. And we need to motivate all the workforce to be engaged in this process of changing, or as I would like to call it, the process of transformation, national transformation. Because at the end of the day, one hand can clap. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Ahmed. Yes, I agree. One hand cannot clap. Our judges, who would like to start asking Ahmed the first question?
I can go.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Ahmed, very much for your presentation. Also very happy to hear about the proposal to create a new NGO that deals with gender equality. I would just like to share that the first ever registered Saudi NGO was a women's empowerment NGO. It's called Al-Ula because it's the first. And it still works on, it changes its focus now and it's more on child poverty, but it's good. When I heard your proposal, I said, yes, we do need another hand to clap when it comes to gender equality. My question to you would be, how do you envision cooperating and coordinating with existing women empowerment NGOs in the country?
So that's a good question. Thank you. Unfortunately, there isn't quite an active NGO in Saudi Arabia currently when it comes to gender equality. But the idea of an NGO in general is to spread awareness, and it's to make sure that no one is left behind. And based on that, a cooperation is based with other NGOs and with the government. What we need to have is to set up a set of goals and a plan on how we are going to achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rahaf. Ms. Sarah, would you like to go?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ahmed, for your presentation. So my question is about what made you choose this topic in specific? Did it affect
Okay,
you?
that is a good question. Thank you.
Personally, so I just want to know why.
All right, so I was always interested on the idea that everyone should have an equal life. But when I worked with UNESCO, I guess I had more a professional background when it comes to gender equality. And I remember I've seen a story that just stuck to my mind. I was attending a conference about gender equality and sustainability, tackling climate change. And there were this case of study from Nepal, I guess, where a woman was trying to have a land to like invest in it and crop vegetables, but she wasn't able to have her own land due to several cultural obligations and obstacles. But then there were an active NGO that empowered women, and they gave her the land that she needed, and she started to have her own crops. After a while, she expanded her business, and she transferred to an organic crops. And then the business was expanded, and she started to export crops to other countries. Due to that, the whole village were able to have a proper job where they were helping her. And with the income she was having, she was able to build a dam that was due to the floods they were having a lot of problems. So she built a dam. And I just realized at that moment that indeed it takes one person to make a difference. It took us, for example, Mohammed bin Salman to set up a vision and work on it. So, and we will never know who's this person going to be. And that's why everyone should have an equal chance and equal opportunity. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. And Mr. Maroon, would you like to go?
Thank you, Ahmed, for this very important presentation. I'm going to play a bit devil's advocate here and try to challenge you if you allow me. I've been going to Riyadh a lot, and one might say that since 2016, really the landscape concerning women has seen an amazing transformation. It's almost unrecognizable compared to 4 or 5 years ago. So the government, one might say, is already doing a very quick and effective job on that front. On the other hand, you see a lot of countries who have very active NGOs, and the progress there is not as quickly as in Saudi Arabia. A lot of countries in the West, in other countries, in Lebanon, where I'm from, where we have, to give an example, a lot of NGOs related to women's rights and equality, and yet progress, I can tell you, is much slower than what we see in Saudi Arabia. What would your NGO add? What would be the value that your NGO would add compared to what the government is already doing? That is my question or challenge.
Thank you. Change in general is a combination of awareness and action. And as I mentioned before, it is the NGO duty to spread the awareness, while it's the government role to make actions. If we took any one of those variables, the equation will be incomplete, and we will not achieve the desired goal. So what an active NGO will do, or Alpha, what will Alpha be doing, it's to spread awareness on why gender equality is a must. Unfortunately, many people think of gender equality as a luxury, or as a thing that should focus on later on. There's important issues that we need to deal with now, and that is wrong. Each community issue should be taken individually and dealt with individually. And as I said, so it will be spreading awareness, empowering women, making sure that all female, regardless to their age, are able to have a fair and equal opportunities and chances. Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maroon. Thank you so much, Ahmed, for your great presentation. And our next presenter would be Abdulaziz. After Abdulaziz, we will have Fatma. Abdulaziz, the floor is yours. Floor is yours. Abdulaziz, I think you're having technical difficulties. I think you're having technical difficulties. Abdulaziz, I think you're having technical difficulties. Therefore, can we go to Fatma right now, and we can come later to you, Abdulaziz. So our next presenter would be Fatma, and after Fatma, we'll have Rinad. So Fatma, please, the floor is yours. Go ahead, please.
Okay, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Let me start by presenting first. So can you see my screen? Okay. So my name is Fatma, and today I'm going to present I wouldn't call it a problem, I would call it a potential enhancement to a current situation. So what if I told you that making a living out of your own skills has never been easier. So this is the case if we would enhance the current situation. So my presentation today is going to be about fostering gig economy in the kingdom and enhance the employability of individuals. So first of all, what is exactly gig economy? So basically, gig economy is an environment or a labor market that is depending upon temporary jobs without any involvement of employers. So you can jump from a contract to another, make a living out of your own skills without the involvement of any employers. It's kind of it's a freelancer's word, but in a more I would say defined and regulated environment. Example of very successful gig platforms are as presented in this slide. For example, Uber, Fiverr, Airbnb, Deliveroo, and so on and so forth. So considering the labor market in the kingdom, I believe it currently suffers from four main problems. First problem is the scattered platforms. So we do have many platforms that is focusing on gig economy and having your own job and making an economic value out of your skills. However, they're so scattered and they have a minimal publicity. So this does not ensure maximizing the efficiency and effective usage across potential customers. Also, limited awareness. I believe people or youth especially. So my focus is more on youth and people with disabilities or that are coming from vulnerable groups, say female people that are living stay-home moms or vulnerable youth that are kind of studying and want to make extra cash on their, daily basis and so on. So I believe there's limited awareness on the possibility of them making a value out of it. And lastly, and I believe this is the most important problem, is the lack of unified regulations. And the next slide where I'll be proposing solutions that would solve such problems. So my proposed solutions to enhance the situation is distributed into two main categories: practical solutions as well as awareness solutions. So first of all, practical solutions include many, but I have listed the most important. One is basically bridging the gap between existing freelancers platform. And how do we do that? I have a potential or a suggestion that, for example, we could unify the authentication process. So if you want to, for example, if you go ahead and open a bank account electronically, you would go to a authentication page from Abshir, where it gathers all your data and all your information, and then voila, everything is there. So we could use similar solution to bridge the gap. So every freelancer would just go to one page to register, and his service is available in all the platforms. Second is regulate rules and regulations. For example, make sure to enhance the credibility, for example, have a reliable payment gateways, credible rules and regulations for working that would ensure the rights of both customers and service providers. Third, which I believe is a very important aspect, is the lack of marketing and publicity. So we should invest more in publicizing the such platforms. Fourth is utilizing existing digital infrastructure. I believe the kingdom is currently investing a tremendous amount of money and effort into its digital infrastructure and digital transformation, and this could play a role in enhancing the gig economy aspect of it. Last and but not least is basically boosting the talent attraction. For example, especially across youth, we could attract their talents by offering them certain benefits. If you're a student, we would, for example, offer them certain discounts. And for I would say mature individuals, we could, for example, link their contracts or their projects to their pension funds, for example, so they could ensure sustainable income and ensure a regulated for example, projects. So this is the practical part of solutions. The other part is awareness. I believe there is lack of awareness across potential customers, especially youth. So we could incentivize workers, for example, to acquire skills that are needed in the market. Most importantly, or for example, graphic designers, photographers, people that are or skills that are needed in the current digital world. This would incentivize people to gain these skills and contribute to the gig economy, and promote the value of independence and owning your job. I think this is a very important aspect. People are more of, they need to switch their mindset from I have to get a safe job within the government or a mature private sector, as opposed to just owning your job and make money out of it. So this is a kind of a shifting mindset. Lastly, I just want to say that, remember, you all have unique skill set that the labor market needs. You just have to learn how to invest it and how to offer it. Thank you so much. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Fatma, for your flexibility to jump in, and thank you for your presentation. And the floor is yours, our judges. Yes, Mr. Maroon, you can go.
Thank you, Fatima, for this comprehensive presentation. Also an important issue, the gig economy. You highlighted the positives. One might also argue that there are downsides to the gig economy, that you might create what some people call the precariat, so people who have insecure jobs, who are living day to day. I mean, there is, of course, the advantage of flexibility, of more freedom, but how would you tackle the sources of insecurity? What measures do you feel are needed to ensure that it doesn't lead to an underclass of people who are jumping from unsafe job to unsafe job and living basically hand to mouth?
That's a kind of a tough question, but a very realistic question. I think sustainability or financial stability is a very important aspect of everyone's job. And my suggestion or my proposal would be is, for example, to ensure a pre-agreed list of projects of every freelancer, to ensure, for example, meeting the financial obligations for a specific period of time. And I think this is again relatable to the fact that the awareness of freelancers, because I believe there's for existing people that are using these platforms, they're making great positions and great financial positions, even relative to their jobs. It extremely outweighs the possibility, the benefits of a full-time job. However, it's just knowing how to utilize it and knowing how to plan it properly. This would ensure, I believe, sustainability and stability as well.
Thank you.
If I may.
Yes, of course, Ms. Sally, you can go.
Thank you, Fatma. You have mentioned that one of the practical solutions is to enable the participants in the gig economy by giving them publicity and exposure. Can you please give us an example? Because a lot of them are very talented. However, whenever they use any of these platforms, they lack a platform of followers or followings. Therefore, they opt to have a sustainable job, a 9-to-5 job where they would get a sustainable income. Thank you.
Absolutely, that's indeed a challenge and a struggle, and that's where where a part of the investment that is probably happening from the government or any other authority to invest so much in publicity and in marketing strategies, as opposed to investing in digital infrastructure, because it takes two to tango, basically. And there's so much investment going on these digital solutions. However, there isn't much in the publicity or marketing strategies. That's why people are kind of lost in between. So for example, if this unified platform offered a great publicity, then freelancers would be motivated to be part of it and could actually choose it as opposed to choosing a full-time job. So I think that with the proper investment and proper awareness, it would definitely ensure effective reachability and accessibility.
Thank you.
Ms. Rahaf?
Thank you very much, Fatma. Clearly you've thought very deeply about the solutions to the problem. You have presented a total of 7 solutions. I was wondering if you had to pick one solution that you would think will have the greatest impact, what solution would that be?
I would definitely choose awareness and switching mindsets, because this would ensure this would ensure traffic towards these platforms, and would definitely change the thinking process of selecting financial gains and financial income. So awareness is the first and most important step.
As an advocate myself, I'm very happy to hear that everyone so far wants to be an advocate and an awareness and contribute to awareness. So that's music to my ears.
Great.
I second that, Ms. Rahaf. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again, Fatma, for your flexibility and for your presentation. And now we will pursue with Rinad. After Rinad, we'll come back to Abdulaziz. Rinad, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Rinad, and today I will be talking to you about innovation in small to medium enterprises. So I'd like to start off with this picture, and I'd like to ask, is anyone familiar with this? And I'm assuming most people would say yes, others might not be so familiar. But if we see this picture, I'm sure everyone knows this is present-day Riyadh. So for decades, England has depended on petroleum for its economic growth. It's been a resource-based economy for decades, and its main revenue has been petroleum exports. But as we all know, in the future, this isn't sustainable, and that is exactly why one of the pillars for Vision 2030 is a thriving economy that includes diversifying the economy and moving from a resource-based economy to a knowledge-based economy that is fueled by technology and innovation in both products and services. And in that type of economy, small to medium enterprises will play a huge role. And that is exactly why one of the goals under a thriving economy is to increase the contribution of SMEs to GDP from 20% to 35%, which will also affect many other goals that we have under a thriving economy, such as reducing employment and increasing the participation of women in the workforce, along with many others. If we look at this graph, we can see that innovation is linked to GDP. So countries that perform high in the Global Innovation Index also tend to perform high in GDP. And if we look at what these countries have in common, it is a mature SME ecosystem. So let's look at Switzerland, for example. In Switzerland, they only have 0.7% of large companies. The rest are all small to medium enterprises, and they are what drive creativity and prosperity in the private sector and in the Swiss economy. And what this Swiss economy do differently than the rest is that their education system follows an apprenticeship program where they also teach students practical skills from a very young age. If we look at Germany, they also follow, they are one of the most innovative, have some of the most innovative SMEs in Europe, and they also follow an education system that's very similar to Switzerland, where they also have a blend of traditional and practical education system. And a lot of the small to medium enterprises in Germany take some students to train them to later on become employees in in these small to medium enterprises. And if you look at South Korea, for example, they have a strong entity that supports small to medium enterprises. It's not only authority, but it's a ministry that acts very quickly and adapts quickly to technological and digital changes and any potential crisis, for example, COVID-19. So mature ecosystem, SME ecosystem has many different benefits to the economy. So as we said, it increases the contribution to GDP, and it also lowers unemployment and encourages innovation. But this can also be possible without an enabling regulatory environment, affordable funding, political stability, and technological enabled infrastructure. Here we look at the SME landscape currently in Saudi Arabia, and a few things catches our eye from the very start. So as we can see, if you look at the SME split, we can see that most SMEs are concentrated in the micro-sized SMEs. This means that they employ approximately 1 to 2 employees. So they have low contribution to GDP and low contribution to employment in the kingdom. This also may indicate that they are stuck in the micro-size due to their inability to grow because of lack of human capital, maybe technology constraints, and so on. Also, another thing that catches our eye is that most SMEs are concentrated in the commercial and accommodation sector and are not diversified within other sectors. So the government should encourage SMEs to open in other sectors as well. For example, fintech, where fintech in other countries is currently dominated by small to medium enterprises, for example. Currently, small to medium enterprises are facing multiple challenges here in the kingdom. First, there's a lack of appropriate IT infrastructure, especially in remote areas. So in Jeddah and Riyadh, this isn't as big of an issue as if we look in areas such as Abha. Also, an absence of a single SME management authority. So we have Munsha'at who are responsible for small to medium enterprises in the kingdom, but we do also have other entities such as COAST who do develop initiatives for small to medium enterprises. And I think till today, it is not clear who is the main authority responsible for small to medium enterprises in the kingdom. And there's low awareness of supporting programs. So Munsha'at has developed many initiatives for small to medium enterprises, but there still isn't a lot of awareness between SMEs on these programs. That being one of them, as I worked with Munsha'at for a while. And when we contacted SMEs, they did not know about this initiative. There's also low mentoring support for SMEs. There should be increased incubators, accelerators that could help address SME needs. An absence of financial support throughout the SME cycle. So recently, venture capital has become more common, but it wasn't common previously. Also, a lot of SMEs still get their finance from families or friends and bankers sometimes, but this is not very common yet. And there's a rigorous bureaucratic system that often discourages SMEs to open or grow. These challenges could be addressed in a number of ways. So we have human capital by coaching and mentoring the employees or the citizens to allow them to work for small to medium enterprises. Also physical capital, so opening up more co-working spaces, like I said, for incubators and accelerators, and more technology and science parks and labs, and maybe have a technology cluster. And financial capital as well, such as venture capital, angel funding, R&D funding, seed funding, and grants. Also intellectual capital and encouraging small to medium enterprises to obtain an intellectual property right in the kingdom as a sort of certificate for their innovation. And technology support and go-to-market. So we shouldn't only focus on small to medium enterprises expanding within the kingdom, but we should also try and help them expand outside of the kingdom and become international companies and hopefully potential unicorns. And we should also acknowledge that small to medium enterprises require different support at different stages of their growth. So startups will typically require financial support. They will require some sort of advisory services. While in the growth state, they may require finance to further grow their IT capabilities. And for the developed SMEs, they will require more support to improve their quality and services and to encourage them to obtain intellectual property rights. So to conclude, the Kingdom needs to take a more push approach versus a pull approach on initiatives to support SMEs. So previously, the Kingdom has put a number of initiatives on the market for SMEs and has tried to encourage SMEs to benefit from these initiatives. And the alternative push approach will be more demand-driven, so understanding exactly what are the SMEs' pain points and tackle those and provide initiatives that tackle those pain points and being proactive. So trying to spot challenges before they actually occur and being agile, so being able to introduce an initiative to a market quickly if there is a need for it, and being very customer-centric and, like I said, having an international focus, so not limiting small to medium enterprise growth to just Saudi Arabia, but encouraging them to become international. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Rinat, for your presentation. Our judges, who would like to go first? Ms. Rahaf? I'll come to you next, Ms. Sarah, after Ms. Rahaf.
Okay, Sarah can go first. That's okay. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Rahaf. Apologies for the confusion. So thank you, Rinat. My question is, what would you call a quick fix to enable SMEs growth?
That's a very good question. So I would not say finance, because when you talk to small to medium enterprises, what they instantly tell you is we need more funding. But I don't believe that's the answer to all their problems. What I believe is talent. They require more talent, and they require more employees who are willing to work for small to medium enterprises. So I feel what the problem here in KSA is that we all tend to go for either the corporate companies or for government entities, and not many people are encouraged to work for small to medium enterprises. So for me, that would be a quick fix, being able to provide them with the right talent to grow.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sarah, and now Ms. Rahaf.
Thank you, Rinat, for this comprehensive presentation. Clearly, you seem very passionate about SMEs, and you've researched this topic very well. My question to you is, sometimes people talk about entities such as SMEs, NGOs, social enterprises as an end in themselves. But to you, why is the growth of SMEs important? Especially in Saudi Arabia?
SMEs really drive innovation. So we often think of them as very small companies that are very small, I wouldn't call them entities, but very small companies that don't innovate much. But I do think when they are given the right initiatives, given the right capabilities, they are able to innovate and then become a large company. And this is done because they still don't have an established culture. They're more flexible than large companies, so they're more able to adopt innovative solutions. And that's why for me, small to medium enterprises are very important to the economy. And of course, like I mentioned in the presentation, they decrease unemployment in the economy, which is very important. So they address many of the Vision 2030 goals.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rahaf. Mr. Maroon, would you like to go, please?
Thank you, Rinat, for the interesting presentation and well-researched presentation. My question to you is, you mentioned the cases of Switzerland, Korea. In all those cases, you could even mention Germany, access to markets and exports are key to enable SME growth. What do you think needs to be done to improve that access to markets for SMEs in Saudi Arabia or in the GCC in general?
And so I think we need to remove restrictions on both import and export. I think till today, the market in Saudi Arabia is very restricted to just local small to medium enterprises. We haven't yet opened up the small to medium landscape to foreign investors. As well as we've just started to do that, but it's not yet mature. So I think that is the first step, because talent does spill over. So we'll get talent from foreign companies, and I think we are also able to provide them with talent. So it's an exchange that should happen between both. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maroon. Thank you, Rinat, for your presentation. Now we have our last two presenters, Abdulaziz, and after Abdulaziz, we will have Wajdan. Abdulaziz will come back, and hopefully this time you'll have a smooth presentation. Go ahead, please.
This voice resonates with me every day in my life. And honestly, it's ringing in the back of my head as I speak to you now. I grew up in a small town in Saudi Arabia, and being the youngest of 9 kids, I had the privilege of sleeping beside my mom and listening to her bedtime stories. As soon as she fell asleep, I will start hearing the sound. As a kid, I thought it just part of being a mom, of motherhood, taking care of many kids. After a long, tiring day, this is how mothers sleep. But part of that kid thought there is some suffering in the sound. It took me years to realize and to came to a realization where I knew this sound is wheezing. And wheezing is a symptom of a disease called asthma affecting the lungs. I was very frustrated. Why no one was taking care of her, even herself. And I was looking for anything to blame, my family, community, society. And at that moment, I had just a moment of epiphany, let's say. I decided to be a doctor, and that's why I'm a doctor in the first place. And during my medical school, I found these 2 words that I think I find the thing to blame. And this is the purpose of my presentation today, to blame these 2 words. So if you allow me, I'll share my screen to see these 2 words and start blaming them. Health disparities. So health disparity, whenever we have a particular type of health difference that is closely linked with economic, social, or environmental disadvantage. Before going and diving into health disparity, and it's a very timely topic, but I'll try to shed the light on the things that I feel most important. Let's have some statistics about our population and what our population has. So we are almost a nation of population of 35 million, and almost 9.5 million of them living in B districts or small remote areas. So I'll talk mainly about health disparity in the rural areas, comparing that to the urban cities we have in the kingdom. This is the number of the population. Let's now fight numbers again. Asthma, my mom wasn't alone. Almost 4% of our adults are asthmatic. Diabetes mellitus, affecting quality of life hugely. 7 million are diabetic, 3 million are pre-diabetic, 23% are diabetic. Hypertension, more than a quarter of our population are hypertensive. Obesity, more than 1/3. With this number, what we are doing, we are combating these numbers furiously. The government putting a huge effort and money and budget to combat these numbers. Yet there is no much of progress. 40% of the total budget revolves around diabetes, of the Ministry of Health budget revolves around diabetes and its complications. There is not much of progress. Why? Why is that? We have large number living in rural areas. They don't have the maximum or the optimal care, and they are part of the population that's not really taken care of in terms of the accessibility of the healthcare. Many reasons and barriers. Awareness and education, a huge problem, but the good part about it, it's a huge part of the solution too. Maldistribution of healthcare providers. Believe it or not, in the urban cities, we are doing really good. We are competing the UK, 26 to a 28 position per 10,000 persons. This number drops to half in the rural areas in the kingdom, almost 12 per 12,000. We also have that centralization of health services in the urban areas, and this work hugely as demotivating factors for the healthcare providers to just work in the urban cities and spend their career lives there. And who will accept to work in the rural areas? The non-Saudis or foreigners. Yet, with the new labor and employment claims or requests and that we are applying now in the Saudi, we are cutting almost annually 6.8 foreign physicians. And the foreign physicians or the foreign healthcare providers compose 73% of the workforce. And the first line that's affected of that decision is the rural areas. Lastly, the postgraduate education and training is hugely, if not totally, focused only in the urban city. The rural cities are totally isolated from the postgraduate training and education. But with all of that, we have hope. The 2030 vision is something whenever we feel like that kind of despair, I just feel the generation, the young girls now will not have what my mom had. Why? Because we are implementing huge results, not in the arena that we want to be yet, but we are moving there, I think, steadily and slowly. Awareness and education, the Ministry of Health is doing a great job on that. Food policy, the changes in the food policy during the past 5 years in Saudi Arabia is tremendous. The digital health strategy and implementing telemedicine as part of the practice in the rural areas is a huge improvement that we will have soon in the kingdom. And also we are starting to expand the postgraduate training in the rural areas. And most importantly, there are some efforts, huge ones, to create a national integrative information system in the patient records and the health files. So this is what I want to tell you about health disparity. It's a tiny topic. I hope it was delivered, and I'll be happy to answer any questions the judges may have. Thank you so much. And sorry for the technical issues for my first time.
No, Abdulaziz, actually, it was worth it. Thank you so much for your presentation and for drawing attention to this topic. Our judge, Mr. Maroon, he would like to go first. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Abdulaziz, for the engaging presentation. It was very rich on diagnosis, on kind of scoping the problem. Health disparities, like all inequality, is an important topic to focus on. I'm curious to know what are the 1 or 2 most effective solutions that you would suggest to address this problem.
Thank you so much. I think if we practice the most effective solutions that you are asking about, I think we will dramatically decrease hugely and dramatically reduce the health disparity. First is the awareness and education. I believe if the people in the rural areas are really aware about how manageable these diseases are, like asthma, diabetes, hypertension, and they have accessibility, because what they need for that, they need just the backbone of any healthcare system. The primary healthcare clinics that easily built, easily implemented in any society, despite its rural, urban, whatever. But with that facilities, they are not educated. They are not really aware about that. They just feel like wheezing could be like part of life, getting old. Diabetes, all community is getting diabetes. So why not? They are not aware about the problem. So first, awareness. The second one is make it very accessible in a lovely way. So now the experience, the user experience of the people in rural areas to go to hospital, they have, and there are some studies on that, they have trust issues with the hospitals and the healthcare providers in the rural areas. So if they have like flu with high fever, they will freak out. They will not go to the primary healthcare clinic in the rural area. They will just drive the car to go to Riyadh, for example, for a flu and high fever, because they don't trust their loved ones in that part of the medical sector. I hope you answered the question. Thank you.
Ms. Rahaf or Ms. Sarah, who would like to go?
I can go. Thank you very much, Abdulaziz. Glad to have you back. I was worried for a bit. Thank you for the presentation. You spoke, just to build up on the previous question about, the one best solution that you favor. And you talked a bit about awareness, and I think prevention is very important for healthcare. But given the context of where we live and how we discuss health issues, what is one thing you think is important, one perception about well-being that you would like to see changed in society?
Thank you so much. That's a very thoughtful question. If there is one word that came to my mind while you were asking your question, it's lifestyle. I think if we implement the idea of people, healthy lifestyle can change everything around. I think everything will be okay. If we follow healthy lifestyle, we'll prevent diabetes, hypertension, obesity. If we apply healthy lifestyle, we'll have more of a sport activities. The community will be vibrant. The life expectancy will improve, and also the Ministry of Health efforts, instead of putting it on chronic diseases, will start focusing on research and other areas. So lifestyle.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abdulaziz. My question is, as someone who is in the field of medicine, do you agree with the 6% cut of foreigners every year? And is there a way where we can reduce the amount of foreigners working in our healthcare sectors without affecting those who are living in rural areas and depend on them?
All right. So I need to be politically correct about answering this. I think, yeah, it's a solution. As someone from this country, I would love to go to the hospitals in the rural areas, and I see the generation and my generation working there instead of giving the chances to the others. Yet, I think we are cutting that 6% without offering solutions. And that's mainly because of the claims about we need more Saudi citizens on that, which is very, very legitimate request. But I think we should not do it that way, because I think it's premature now to start implementing such solutions dramatically. Also, given the fact that the reason they are doing that, not because of health standards, mainly because of labor and workforce standards, without really caring about what the effects of the health outcomes on that. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sarah, and thank you so much, Abdulaziz, for your presentation. And our last presenter would be Wajdan. Wajdan, best of luck. Go ahead, please. Wajdan, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Ghada, for notifying me. First of all, thank you, Ghada, and welcome to everyone. Welcome to the panel of judges and whoever is watching this live stream. And before I start, I'd like to show you some sentences that I'm sure that you heard one or two of them at least once, either from yourself or a friend or a family member. Okay, I have no idea why this is not working now. Okay. Yes, my current career is not relevant to what I have studied in college. If I have known better, as I know now, I wouldn't choose this path. I wish that I can change my career, but it's too late for me now. I have benefited in an external 3-month program more than 4 years in college. We shouldn't take this comment lightly because it actually indicates a major underlying issues such as lack of self-knowledge, lack of future perspective, and the absence of dynamic opportunities, and sadly, a waste of time and effort and resources. When it comes to education, we are majorly concerned about education accessibility. But in the previous scenarios, all of these people had an access to education. So is it time now to give a substantial amount of attention to education sustainability? I am Wujdal Aidan, and I am an impact-driven reflective learner and a master's student in innovation and entrepreneurship at Dublin City University. And I'm here to show you some of the most interesting innovative approaches that could tackle the problem with education sustainability to ensure that the future could belong to everyone. The problem with education is not relevant, is not recent or new. Only 25% of the college graduates only actually worked in a directly related field to their majors. Either they weren't able to choose properly or their majors didn't respond to the emerging new fields. Saudi Arabia is giving a tremendous effort to correct this issue, such as wide campaign to occupy young professionals with emerging new skills, rehabilitation of graduates, also the reassessment and adding new majors to the university. But still, there is one vital element missing. And honestly, with a fast accelerating world, are we going to keep on doing the same corrective actions every few years? Education shouldn't only correspond to the emerging new fields and the fast accelerating world. It also needs to correspond to the nature growth of human being. And is there a model that actually could tackle both of these areas? Surprisingly, there is. Hasso-Plattner Institute of Design at Stanford, which is an institute only dedicated to try to tackle some challenging real world problems, have come up with a solution or a vision. They were trying to envision the future for Stanford University in 2025, and they came up with a model called Stanford Open Loop University. This model actually tackled both of these areas, and it's a very interesting model. At the end of the presentation, I'll give you a link to see the details of this model, but for now, let me just give you the key characteristic of it. Students will have 6 years worth of study used over their lifetime. It's actually an adaptive and personalized journey where the students learn what they need and whenever they need it. It focuses on building skill and growing diverse network. And most importantly, it allows them to explore their potential in diverse areas and encourage their growth mindset. One interesting merit, before the merit, let me just show you the timeline of a regular student and the timeline of a Stanford student. The classical student will first have huge chunk of knowledge, of academic knowledge in their life, while the world is accelerating when they are soaked in academic works. And maybe occasionally another chunk if they wanted to go for a master's degree. But at Stanford, students can loop in and out college whenever they want, allowing them to learn, experience, and reflect on their experience, and they can pivot their career whenever they want, and they can be part of the accelerating world. An interesting merit about this model is the classroom environment. Before, it was only one academic perspective given to a bunch of naive students. But with this model, the learning environment is very dynamic. It got a diverse potentials. It got diverse students in diverse phases of their life, diverse industries and diverse careers. So again, the learning will be mutual and will be more enriched rather than only the previous one, only one perspective given to all of the students. The impact or the anticipated impact is student will graduate with mastery of skills, not only raw knowledge. It will remove the stigma of gap years, and older adults could pivot their careers and they can reconnect to the community. And also, it will have a better resources utilization because, again, they will learn what they need and whenever they need it. And college, with time, it will have a self-filtration system because unneeded field or unneeded courses will no longer be required. It will also, for me, the cherry on top is they will develop strong self-awareness and they will have a mission-centric mindset rather than a major-centric. Also, the diverse network of a knowledgeable community that will turn the community into agile, lifelong learners. This is not an invitation to abolish the classical system or not even an invitation to adopt the same Stanford model. It's an invitation to show that where the world is headed. And we need to create such dynamic educational opportunities to ensure that the future is for everyone. Here, we only care about youth at this chunk of their life, but we need to take care of them across their life. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Wajdan. Yes, future belongs to everyone. Our judges, please go ahead with your questions.
If I may?
Of course, yes.
Thank you so much, Wajdan, for your presentation. Some might argue that the classical way or the classic way of education sculpts personalities and it helps youth into growing up and becoming people who are more resilient towards, for example, 9-to-5 jobs or doing something that they don't specifically prefer. Don't you think that this could affect in the building of character maturity and kind of resilience towards unlike or not unprepared topics?
Thank you, Sarah, for your question. First of all, I agree, not all the dynamic model work for all personalities, but having such dynamic models as an option, open option for people, or for people who still want to figure out things is a better way than forcing them to just be in this high disciplines majors until for 4 years of your life. And then when you actually test the water with working life and experience, you realize that, okay, I didn't really want this anymore. So having both options, as I said, it's not an invitation to abolish the classical. The classical is working to an extent. It's an invitation to accept and adoption such dynamic educational path within our university.
Perfect, thank you.
I can go next if Mr. Maroon is okay with that. Well, thank you, Wajdan, very much for this presentation. And I would like to commend your courage for taking on such a troubling challenge. It is the issue of the century. And I think, you know, humanity is on the verge of finding a new solution for learning and education. Perhaps my question would be about relating, you know, the solution to Saudi, and you know, I would like to hear your perspective on the education system or the higher education system in the country, and how you think the Loop University will help with improving the situation in the country.
Thank you, Ms. Rahaf. First of all, now I think everyone knows that Saudi Arabia University have become an individual entities, so they have the autonomy to create such dynamic like a track in their education. Instead of having one major, you can have this track. And again, for me, it's all about the mentality of the student who want to keep on exploring these things and keep on exploring their paths. And I think the important thing is not the college themselves, but educating employers about such loopers. They call them loopers, such loopers that these loopers actually, first of all, they are fired fire first with curiosity, and they want to acquire more skills, and they can actually give you a very vibrant energy in your workplace, which is true. The looper profile is different than a regular student profile. Those people are really like fired up with curiosity and the desire to learn more, and they want to become lifelong learners. And some employers and some company, they are looking for these profiles. So I think the important thing is to raise awareness of such mindset of people, and to raise the awareness of the importance of having such people within the work environment.
Thank you very much for your insights.
Mr. Maroon?
Thank you, Ghada. Good evening, Wujdan. My question to you is more personal, based on what you just shared with us. Very interesting, by the way. I echo what Sarah and Raf has said on the criticality of this topic. Looking back at your own educational journey and learning journey, based on what you presented today, what is one thing that you would do differently, that you would change about your own journey, knowing what you do know today?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Maroon, for your question. The funny thing is, I was the known student in college that always asked for more and always give feedback to the faculty. And after I graduated, I asked the faculty to please, you need to include at least one chapter in each course about what is happening to the world in the context of this course. Don't only give us the information that you already know, tell us what is happening now. So this is one thing that I wish that I had in college. I mean, I had it by myself because I was looking for it, but my peers didn't. And sometimes people do have this potential to think, but if you don't present them the idea or the problem, it wouldn't like spark in their heads. So students will stay with the normal information that they had before, but no one presented them new problems or even tried to solve these problems. So I think what I would want to change is, again, having this as a mandatory to have this chapter on what is happening in the real world now in the context of what we are studying.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maroon, and thank you so much, Wujdan. And with Wujdan, we come to our last presenter and finish our third session for today. Please first allow me to thank Ms. Rahaf Al-Sanusi, Ms. Sarah Al-Arrak, and Mr. Maroon Kairouz for your engagement and your contribution for today. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our presenter, for your astonishing performance today. Thank you so much, our audience, for coming today, and watching us. Thank you for Ms. Sheikha for her support all along. Please enjoy the rest of